So now it comes down to using the Caranavamsa Dasa. With 12 predictive dashas to examine, things can get sort of out of hand very quickly if we try to use all 12 dashas all the time, because you'll just get so many indications, your head will start spinning. So the trick to making the best, most efficient and effective use of Jaimini's 12 dashas is to use each dasha for what it's going to be most revealing toward. Okay? So each of the dashas has a sort of a focus point, type of events, a type of thing that it's most focused on. And you want to focus on any dasha to find the high points of that focus, where the biggest events relevant to that dasha's focus are going to be indicated. If you see a few dashas all indicating the same big effects, but through their own veins, through their own agendas, their own sort of what they're focused on, that's when you get the biggest events in life. Okay? Rather than the more casual events of life. So in the end, it's looking for lots of dashas coming together to indicate a similar event that indicates the biggest events. But to find all those dashas coming together, you want to focus in on each dasha on what's most important to that dasha. So with the Caranavamsa Dasa, it's the most important dasha for predicting changes to a person's path. Where are you going in life? What are you focusing on? What are you identifying with? And by identifying with, I mean, when you think of yourself, do you think, oh, I'm an astrologer. Oh, I'm a businessman. Oh, I'm a married person. What's your life revolving around? What's the primary path that you're on? What are you identifying with as a person most strongly? Okay? Those are the things that the Caranavamsa Dasa is going to show. Just that road of where you're on, where you're focused, where you're heading, and that's what we're identifying with, whatever that may be. Okay? So the most important periods in the Caranavamsa Dasa are the dashas that are holding the Sun, the Atmakaraka, the Lagna Lord, and the Pada. Because those four things represent the individual going down the path of their life most significantly. Okay? Then to a slightly less significant degree, the dispositor of the Sun, the dispositor of the Atmakaraka, and the dispositor of the Lagna Lord are also indicating the same thing. Okay? Because they rule those three important planets. And no, do not look towards the ruler of the Pada. Just the ruler of the Sun, the Atmakaraka, and the Lagna Lord are the important ones. And then the Pada, and then the Sun, Atmakaraka, and Lagna itself. And you want to check that in all the Vargas. If you come to the dasha of, say, the Sun in a particular Varga, during that dasha, the person's going to be strongly identified and focused on the things of that Varga. So we can easily see what area of life, what part of life a person is most focused on by seeing where these self factors that represent the individual walking on the path of their life, in which Vargas these planets are getting activated by the Navamsa Dasa. Okay? So when a person says, has a lot of hopes to do something and really focus on it, make it their life's goal and purpose, you need to look for the Caranavamsa Dasa to be indicating that thing somehow, okay? Usually by way of the Varga. So you need to look at this in all the Varga charts, okay? So as an example chart here. So here's a person, we're going to take their life in Virgo Dasa. From 1999 to 2011, we're simply going to examine their Virgo Dasa to see what their path is going to consist of, what they're focused on, what's most important to them, where they're trying to head, okay? And see how that is unfolding for them, okay? So it's kind of in the Jaimini screen, you can go one Varga at a time and click through all the Vargas here, and find all the things. But what I like to do is right-click on the screen, pull up the Shadasha Varga screen, and move it over here to the right. So now you've got 15 Vargas up and the Rashi chart here. So we can see right away, what's going on during, we can look at all the Vargas at a glance. Okay? However, this screen does not show the padas. So really quickly, you can just calculate the Lagna pada really quickly and put it in that chart. So, person's running Virgo Dasha. Virgo is the first house, the Lagna, and holds the Lagna Lord and holds the Sun in the Rashi chart. So this is going to be a big emphasis on the Rashi chart being the critical Varga for them during this. They're going to be focused on Rashi indications. What are Rashi indications? Well, Rashi indications is basically finding your place in the world. Finding your place where you're going to make your mark on the world. And what's your path? What's your big path? So it's no surprise that during the Virgo Dasha, this person started their career as a natural healer. Okay, and they found their career, their life's purpose during their Virgo period. Okay, and we can see that was emphasized here. Now, while the person's walking down that road, just how good that dasha is going to be is going to be determined by the planets influencing this sign, Virgo. Well, here it's pretty nice because we've got the Sun is the karaka of self, and therefore Virgo becomes, the body of the self walking down the road of life. It's also the Lagna and the Lagna Lord, so it's triple. But the good thing is that Mercury is in the first, which is making Virgo have Jaimini's first source of strength. Right? The Rashi aspected by its Lord, Mercury or Jupiter, will do well. Okay? So this Virgo is really strong in that regard. It's aspected by Mercury, who's also his Lord. However, there's also some problems too, in that the Rashi Virgo is also holding the Sun, the separating factor of the Lord of the 12th from it. So it'll also find separation at times along its path, which has happened as well. They've taken times when they have wanted to get away from work and they've separated from work to do other things and take lengthy vacations. So their career path has not been everything. They've taken separation from that at times throughout this period of Virgo. Okay? And they haven't worked extreme hours. They've worked much less than they could be working, because the 12th Lord there is going to separate them from that career path to some degree. So they don't do as much, and they possibly don't make as much. That, of course, depends on how much they charge. But there is that separating factor. But with the Lagna Lord in that sign, plus Mercury in that sign, that's two good things, two boosts. So it's all in all solid. Okay? So now we want to look through all the Varga charts and see in any Varga charts if any of these things are getting lit up. Well, on the Hora chart, Mercury and the Lagna Lord are in Virgo. So again, we've got an emphasis on responsibilities, material responsibilities. And so a lot of the emphasis during this time is making money for them. That means they do care and they are concerned and make it a big point that the money they earn through their work. They're not just doing it because they love doing it. They're doing it because they want to make money too. Okay? Which is a strong factor here. Virgo is boosted by Mercury and its Lord, Mercury, but it also has separating Sun to it. So at times they've had, made some less money, been separated from some of their, the path of wealth, and made less money than they've sort of wanted at times because of that separating Sun. But Virgo is mostly good. But had that separating Sun not be here in the, in the Hora and the Rashi, their career, they would have put more time into their career, and they would have had more money as a result as well. Okay? Then in the Drekana, we've got Mercury there. And Mercury is not the Lagna Lord in the Drekana or any of that stuff. The Atmakaraka for this person is the moon. It's not holding the moon. The Pada in this chart, it's a Capricorn Lagna with Saturn in the fourth. That makes the Pada, that's going to make the Pada Aries, okay, which is not there. So Virgo's not getting strongly lit up. It's not a big focal point of their life. Interesting enough, in this period, for the first time, they lived far away from their siblings, and their siblings were a less part of their life than they had been. They weren't a focal object of their lives. Okay? I'm going to actually start just pulling the Vargas up here so you can see a bigger chart. It'll just be easier on the video. Okay. The fourth Varga, Virgo's empty, but perhaps the Lagna Pada will fall in there. Lagna is Sagittarius, Jupiter's in the 8th, that makes the Pada fall in the 3rd. And you can see the 1P over here. Well, that's not Virgo. So the 4th is not going to be an emphasis. They haven't purchased a house. They didn't attempt to purchase a house. They were not focused on trying to purchase a house. It wasn't their goal, their destiny, because the 4th Varga wasn't lit up. Okay, let's go to the Septumtia. In the Septumtia, Virgo is empty and has no Padas. Okay, so children, procreation of children, not an emphasis during that time, not based on this dasha. Okay, not that another dasha couldn't indicate it, but based on this dasha, it's not. Navamsha, Virgo is empty, and Virgo is holding the 10th pada and the 3rd pada. Okay, nothing that's self thing. So their path is not going to be focused on Navamsha matters of marriage and finding their path in life, meaning their ashram in life, their marriage ashram or any other type of ashram. In the Dasamsha, the Virgo is their sign as always. It doesn't have any of the self factors, Sun, Lagna Lord, Atmakaraka in there. And it's holding the 4th pada. So this dasha is not prompting them to do, amazing things with their work, to be the best, to make breakthroughs in their work, and to be the best they can. They're not focused on great fruits and doing great deeds at this time. Okay? In the 12th Varga, it's the 11th sign. It's not a first sign. It's holding Mars. It has the 1st pada though. Okay, it has the Lagna pada in it. So during this time of Virgo, they will be strongly identified with their parents, which is Dwadasamsha. Okay, and that will be, how good will that involvement be? How big will that path be? Well, we have to examine it. We got cruel Mars in it, so there'll be some frustration and quarreling. We've got the Sun, a separating factor, and it's also the 12th Lord, so it's a strong separating factor on this. Okay, and the Moon, if I remember right, on this person is waning. It also has the waning moon aspecting it. But then it has Mercury and the Lord aspecting it. So it has 1, 2, 3 troublesome influences to a good solid Mercury who's also the Lord. So it's more problematical than good. So this means during this period of Virgo, they will have involvement and with their parents, or one of their parents at least, that creates a lot of problems and is frustrating Mars, doesn't give a lot of room for growth, waning moon, that results in separation, but which also has some friendship and communication, Mercury, to it. Well, there came a time in this dasha where the person actually had a huge problem with their, first of all, this person moved to a place that was closer to their father than they had been in the Virgo dasha. So there was more father stuff happening in their life. Okay, than it had been in the years before that, a bigger focus on that. And they felt good about that. They were glad that their dad at least had one kid around there to help him if necessary. But during this Virgo dasha with separating sun, the waning moon, which is making the growth that happens between these two people, inner growth, not external successful growth, and the Mars, who can get frustrated over things. Well, they had a falling out that resulted in some litigations directed at this person by the father, and not really communicating except through lawyers for a couple years. Again, there's more troublesome influences. So this is an involvement, taking a lot of time up with an area of life, making, the parent and a focus of the life, but the focus is not a happy, enjoyable focus. Okay? All right, after I get these basic videos done, I'm going to get much more involved with the effects of each planet. And so I'm not going to spend too much time in this first video on using Caranavamsa Dasa and giving the details of what each of these planets are doing. I want to just give those to you one by one so you can understand what every planet will do in a very specific way. But the basic thing is we've got a separating factor sun, going to cause some separation to the parents during that time. Okay? And you'll see the sun is also the 10th Lord, which is the father. And so we have that separation from the father. 12th Varga. Shodamsha has to do with vehicles. It also has to do with trying to be more happy. This is Virgo. It's not holding any of the self factors. And it's not holding the Apada either. 20th Varga is holding the Upapada and the 11th Pada, but no self factors. It's holding Venus, who's not the Lagna Lord or the dispositor of the Lagna Lord. So nothing going on special in the 20th Varga. In the 24th Varga, we've got the Lagna Lord Jupiter. Okay, so the 24th Varga is the Varga of knowledge and understanding. So their path is going to incorporate, during this time there'll be an emphasis and focus on acquiring knowledge and coming to understanding of things in this Virgo period. Now, how is Virgo? Well, Virgo is aspected by Saturn, a separating factor. It has Jupiter in it, which is good, makes it a better dasha. But then it's aspected by the waning moon, which means during this time while they are being involved in a field that does require a lot of knowledge, their knowledge really hasn't grown too much. They haven't acquired a newer body of knowledge, which is the waning moon. They've gotten better because the moon just kind of picks up on things just through their inner knowing, which a waning moon is good for. But their external knowledge base, their studies, hasn't really increased much. Saturn over here, aspecting Jupiter, is actually going to cause, or aspecting Virgo, which becomes the Rashi of knowledge in this chart of them. It's a Rashi of them heading towards knowledge. Saturn is causing separation to that. So they really haven't spent much time in this Virgo dasha acquiring knowledge. Based on starting a new field that's very knowledge intensive, they just kind of went to work in their field after they graduated, but they didn't keep acquiring knowledge in a field that they could have kept acquiring knowledge for the next 40 years. But they didn't, so they had a few years of schooling, got their degree, and then just went to work. Didn't really focus on knowledge. So they were separated from acquiring knowledge and getting more knowledge due to Saturn. Why were they separated? Well, mostly due to Saturn ruling the 10th house, which is, being busy at work. Saturn ruling the 12th house, taking vacations. Saturn ruling the 6th house, paying some debts off. Saturn ruling the 3rd house is a big one, being heavily involved with hobbies. Okay, so these indications are sort of the indications of why they're separated from knowledge. So Virgo is not a period of gaining greater knowledge and studying deeper and contemplating what they know. Other things are separating from that. Okay? And in fact, in the Virgo period, they quit studying. Before that, they had been doing a lot of studying because they were, involved with school and stuff. But that Virgo period caused them to be separated from their studies because they finished school and stopped studying. All right, it's the 24th Varga. 30th Varga, that's the chart of, health, working on one's health. Virgo there is empty, and it does not have a pada, anything in it, okay, at all. And no padas in it either. It's an empty sign. So that's not going to be emphasized in this dasha. So we can just skip that and go on to the next. The Kavadamsha is auspicious and inauspicious things. If that Varga gets kicked in, you'll just be really lucky in a positive way. You can be really lucky on your path. Okay? If that Varga kicks in an unfortunate way, your path you'll have no luck, and everything that could go wrong to your path will, in respect to Caranavamsa. So here, Mercury is, or Virgo is holding the 3rd and 9th, but more importantly, it's holding the first pada. Okay? So this is going to show an emphasis on luck, fortune or misfortune, which is the indications of the 40th Varga, being a big factor in their lives during this time. Okay, so this is really a time where fortune or misfortune can come in abundance to them. They either really help them or really hinder them. This sign has got, is boosted by Mercury. It has a second source of strength. It also has its Lord there. So that's two good, strong factors. It also has Rahu there. Okay? And Rahu, as I mentioned, always indicates a weakness in whatever you get involved into. A weakness that can cause you to eventually become separated with it or to have less happiness there. Well, as it turned out, this person, when they got into their career, they just were amazingly lucky in that their career just fell into place. And their career was that of a healer, which has a lot to do with Mercury and Virgo. It's perfectly indicated by this Virgo. And they were just so fortunate. They had like we looked at in the 24th Varga, they haven't been studying, but they're just extremely talented. And everyone that's come has had great results. In no time, their practice just got as good as they wanted it, even better, in fact, to where within a short while they had to stop booking people because they just didn't want to be booked out too far, and they didn't want to work 60 hours a week, but they could have if they wanted to. So they were just really fortunate in their practices really taking off above and beyond their expectations. So in no time they were making good money. The career was secure in no time. And this was in a little town with the population, very, very small population, and their practice just took off. So Virgo was a very fortunate period in that, in their path, which is the pada in this chart, taking off. Okay. Now, we've also got the Rahu here. Rahu always indicates what you're getting yourself into is not really what you thought it was going to be. And so this is going to be some lack of fortune, is how it turned out. Well, as it turns out, it's been really hard for this person to work that many hours in that. Even though they're not working full time, they're working more than they want, and the type of work, they're so fortunate to have it with the Mercury here. But it wasn't the kind of work, as they found out later, they wanted to do 40 hours a week, even though they had the fortune to be really talented with it. So they started their practice with a lot of hopes. After a while, once they got work in this Rahu, in this Virgo dasha, Rahu kind of showed them that, hey, wait a minute, this isn't everything you thought it was going to be. You're not happy doing this 8 hours a day. You don't want to do this more than 4 hours or 5 hours a day. And so that was the misfortune part, is that the thing that they got involved in, though fortunate with it due to Mercury and Virgo, wasn't, they really didn't get what they thought they would out of it, which always happens with Rahu. With Rahu, you get involved in something and it never turns out to be what you thought it would be and make you feel the way you thought it would make you. Okay? 45th Varga. Oops, let's see here. The 45th Varga is the Varga of really doing something with a lot of intention, with a lot of will and intention, and putting every, fiber of your will into it, and really being determined to make this the thing of your life. Here in the Virgo, we don't have anything. We don't have any planets. It's not the Lagna, and no pot is in it too. The Lagna pot is not in it. So 45th Varga is not getting strongly lit up. Shashtiamsha Varga has to do with all things. If your Caranavamsa Dasa is lighting up your first house factors that I mentioned, your self factors, your path factors, in the 60th Varga, for good, your path just can take off so much more strongly, and it magnifies and emphasizes any strong Vargas that are indicating your path. If the Shashtiamsha is linked to your path in Caranavamsa, but it's all with trash planets, troublemaking planets, separating factors and so on influencing it, then your path, you just hit a wall on your path and you find it impossible to even walk down your path, and possibly and quite likely just get knocked off your path. In this case, it's neither. There's nothing happening. So that means their path is not going to be unusually amazing during this time in a larger way. It's going to be your average path, okay? Meaning he's on a path that's replaceable, that he could do something else just as well. It's not the path, it's not the success moment of the lifetime where everything is right exactly how it needs to be beyond good or anything like that. But the 60th Varga just emphasizes the path for good or ill, depending on if it has good or ill planets influencing it. Okay? All right, some other charts we look at will certainly show those things. So now what you all can do is, look at your Caranavamsa Mahadashas in your charts and charts of people you know, and look for when these critical things, the Sun, the Atmakaraka, the Lagna Lord, the Pada, and the dispositors of the Sun, Atmakaraka, and Lagna Lord, are in this Dasha sign of the Caranavamsa, then that will be an important time for the direction your life is taking, for good or ill, depending on the influences on it. So in the next video, I'm going to start going through more specifically the overall effect of each of the planets. We learned all the different categories of the planets, like qualities of a planet, like which ones are sattvic and which are tamasic and all that. But now each planet has got these basically 9 qualities, and the combination of those 9 qualities is going to determine exactly how a planet affects the sign. So I'll explain all those planet by planet, and then we'll be ready to look at the dashas with some more detail. But while that happens, you'll be amazed at just how much detail you can get out of this. In fact, another example, I remember looking at my chart. Let's see here. Okay, in my chart here, so I was running the Caranavamsa of from 82 to 93 of Taurus. I was running the Caranavamsa of Taurus. So in my 16th Varga, which is the Shodamsha to do with vehicles, I was running the sign with my Makaraka. And this Venus rules vehicles. This is the chart of vehicles. It's my Atmakaraka. And it also happens to be the 4th sign from the Lagna in that chart. And, and also Venus happens to be the dispositor of Jupiter, the 4th Lord. So during that time, my life largely revolved around vehicles, around bicycles. I started learning to work on bikes as soon as, in this beginning of this Taurus period. A little while later, I started racing bikes. Throughout this entire time, I made my living on bikes or, delivering newspapers when I was 12 through 14. and then from 15 onward working in bike shops. And I worked heavily in bike shops until 1993. That was my job. I worked in bike shops. And then in 1993, I set up my Western astrology practice. So my life path was all around, revolving around bicycles during my Taurus Dasha, because Mount Makaraka is there. And it worked. It was wonderful. You can see I've got Venus there in its own sign. I got the moon exalted and Jupiter aspecting it. So I've got two sources of strength, Venus and Jupiter, making Taurus a great sign. And I was just so lucky with vehicles during that time. And, you know, I was focused on it, and the racing bikes was my, was my goal in life during that time, my ambition in life, my career at that time. And then later on, as I shifted into my occult studies, the bicycles, I was heavily involved with bikes while to make a living, to feed myself with, while I got into all my occult studies, which happened at the end of that period. So, the dasha is just really amazing, and you just really see these times when things light up. But it can be this specific, where, oh yeah, that Varga is getting lit up, and your life is going to revolve around the things of that Varga during the time of that, So it's really interesting. Okay, so you'll see the connections pop up really fast as you start looking at your dashas with the Caranavamsa. It's a great dasha to see the direction your life is taking. All right, so more on the planets coming, and then more Caranavamsa examples. Thank you.